One of history's greatest treasures might be hidden right beneath our feet. For centuries, the Great Sphinx of Giza has kept its deepest secrets locked within ancient stone. But a strange feature on its back, a rectangular patch that looks like a sealed door, could change everything. This is the story of a modern archaeological mystery, a search for a forgotten chamber that might hold untold riches or lost knowledge. By the end, you will understand the compelling evidence that has convinced many a real discovery is waiting, and the powerful reasons it remains untouched. We will examine the high-tech scans that revealed hidden voids and the ancient legends that speak of a hidden library. What do you believe is the true purpose of a monument that has watched over the desert for thousands of years, standing sentinel on the Giza-plateau? The Great Sphinx is a monument of almost incomprehensible scale. Carved directly from the living limestone bedrock, it stretches 240 feet long and stands 66 feet tall, a hybrid creature with the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh, often believed to represent King Khafre. Its gaze is fixed eternally eastward, watching the sun rise, a role it has performed for what is traditionally dated to around 4,500 years. Yet even its age is a subject of fierce debate, some researchers, pointing to deep vertical weathering patterns on its body, argue this erosion was caused by heavy rainfall, suggesting the Sphinx could be thousands of years older, perhaps dating back to a time when the Sahara was a lush green savanna. This is the water erosion hypothesis, a controversial idea that, if true, would rewrite the early chapters of Egyptian history. From its inception, the Sphinx was a guardian. It was not a tomb but a protector, stationed before the pyramid complexes to ward off evil and watch over the royal necropolis. The passage of millennia has not been kind. Its iconic nose is famously missing, a loss often wrongly attributed to Napoleon's troops, but which historical accounts suggest occurred centuries earlier. A ceremonial beard, once attached to its chin, now resides in the British Museum. These missing pieces are a testament to its long history of damage and repair, a physical record of the mystery that has always surrounded it. We have studied it, measured it, and photographed it from every angle, and yet the feeling persists that the Sphinx has not yet given up its deepest truths. It remains, first and foremost, a guardian of secrets. The true mystery of the Sphinx began to shift from its weathered surface to its hidden interior in the late 20th century. While most Egyptology focused on the visible monuments, a team of unconventional researchers decided to ask a different question. What if we could see inside the stone? This inquiry was led by a collaboration between the maverick researcher John Anthony West and a Boston University geologist, Dr. Robert Schoch. Their mission was not to dig, but to listen. Using a technique called seismic refraction, they sent sound waves into the ground around the Sphinx and measured the echoes that bounced back. Different materials and, crucially, empty spaces returned distinct acoustic signatures. The results were startling. The data revealed what appeared to be several anomalies beneath the monument, areas where the sound waves behaved as if they were traveling through hollow chambers or tunnels rather than solid bedrock. One of the most compelling of these anomalies was located on the northern flank of the Sphinx, near its rear. Ground-penetrating radar surveys later seemed to corroborate these findings, pointing to a specific rectangular-shaped void directly behind the Sphinx's shoulders. This led investigators to a very peculiar feature on the monument's back. High up on the rump of the great beast, there is a distinct rectangular patch. It is not a natural crack or a result of haphazard erosion. The edges are too straight, the corners too sharp. It looks for all the world like a carefully cut block that was used to seal an opening, a door deliberately closed and then camouflaged to blend with the surrounding stone. This physical feature, combined with the subsurface scans, transformed a geological curiosity into a tangible archaeological hypothesis. Someone, long ago, may have built a passage here and then sealed it shut. The question that has haunted explorers ever since is simple yet profound. What was so important that it required a permanent stone door in the back of the world's most famous guardian? The idea of a sealed chamber is not just a modern fascination born from radar scans. It is an echo, a whisper that has traveled down through centuries, preserved in ancient stone and medieval manuscripts. Long before any geophysical survey, stories persisted that the Sphinx was more than a statue, that it was a guardian in the most literal sense, standing watch over something precious hidden within or beneath it. One of the earliest and most puzzling clues comes from an artifact known as the inventory stela, discovered at Giza in the 19th century. This stela, attributed to the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, builder of the Great Pyramid, makes a startling claim. It states that Khufu ordered a temple built for the Sphinx because, and this is the crucial part, he found the house of Isis, mistress of the pyramid, already buried in the sand. If this record holds any historical truth, it suggests the Sphinx was already an ancient, sand-covered ruin in Khufu's time, a relic from a much older civilization. This would mean the monument we attribute to his son, Khafre, might instead have been merely restored by him. The stela paints a picture of a pharaoh encountering a forgotten guardian from a lost age, a discovery that would have been both awe-inspiring and politically powerful. Centuries later, during the medieval period, Arab historians kept the flame of this mystery alive. The scholar al-Makrizi, writing in the 15th century, collected local legends that spoke of hidden knowledge within the Sphinx. He recorded tales of a library of antediluvian wisdom, a hall of records containing the scientific and philosophical secrets of a civilization that perished, perhaps in a great flood. These were not stories of gold and jewels, but of something far more valuable to a seeker: lost knowledge. The most direct interaction between a ruler and the Sphinx, however, is carved on a slab of granite that still sits between its massive paws. This is the dream-stela, erected by the pharaoh Thutmose IV. The inscription tells a compelling story of a young prince who, while hunting in the desert, fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx's head, which was the only part visible above the encroaching sand. In his dream, the Sphinx, identifying itself as the sun god Harmakhit, spoke to him. It promised Thutmose the kingship of Egypt if he would clear away the sand that imprisoned its body. The prince fulfilled the bargain, became pharaoh, and commemorated the event with this stela. This is not just a royal publicity stunt. It reveals a profound cultural memory that the Sphinx held power, that it could confer legitimacy, and that its physical state, buried or revealed, was of cosmic importance. Together, these texts form a tapestry of belief, each thread from a different era reinforcing the same core idea. From an ancient pharaoh claiming to have rediscovered it, to a medieval scholar writing of hidden libraries, to a new kingdom king securing his throne by freeing it, the Sphinx was consistently seen as a keeper of profound secrets. The modern radar anomaly on its back feels less like a new discovery and more like a potential physical confirmation of a very, very old story. While ancient texts hint at hidden wisdom, the modern legend of the Sphinx's secret was crystallized by a single, unlikely figure. In the early 20th century, an American psychic named Edgar Cayce began delivering trance readings that would forever link the monument to the myth of Atlantis. Cayce, often called the Sleeping Prophet, described a vast underground library buried beneath the sands of Giza, which he named the Hall of Records. According to his detailed visions, this chamber was constructed by survivors of the lost civilization of Atlantis to preserve their advanced knowledge before their continent sank. He prophesied with startling specificity that the entrance to this hall would be found under the Sphinx's right paw, and that it would be rediscovered and opened before the end of the 20th century. The contents he described were not gold, but something far more tantalizing: crystalline tablets and ancient records containing the complete history of humanity, advanced spiritual teachings and forgotten technologies. Cayce's readings, though entirely outside the realm of academic archaeology, struck a powerful chord. They provided a vivid, romantic narrative that framed the Sphinx not just as an Egyptian artifact, but as a global keystone, a time capsule from a prehistoric golden age. This idea fused with the earlier Arab legends and the emerging scientific anomalies, creating a potent cultural cocktail. It transformed the search from a purely archaeological endeavor into a spiritual quest, inspiring generations of enthusiasts, authors, and filmmakers. The prophecy directly fueled real-world expeditions, most notably influencing the research teams that conducted the seismic and radar surveys in the 1980s and 90s, who often cited Case's work as part of their motivation. While mainstream Egyptology dismisses the Hall of Records as pure fantasy, its impact is undeniable. It reshaped how millions of people imagine the Sphinx, embedding the idea of a single, profound secret waiting to be found. This blending of mysticism and science created a unique tension, where hard data from ground-penetrating radar feels like it might just be confirming an age-old dream. So the question lingers, not just in academic journals, but in the collective imagination. Did Edgar Cayce tap into a symbolic truth, or could there be a literal chamber waiting beneath that giant stone paw? This shift from legend to data arrived with a series of high-tech scans. To understand what the machines found, you need to think of them as sophisticated ears and eyes for the Earth. The first major technique used was seismic refraction. Here is how it works in simple terms. Researchers place a series of sensors called geophones in the ground around the Sphinx. Then they create a sound wave, often by striking a metal plate with a hammer. That sound wave travels down through the layers of rock and sediment. When it hits a boundary between different materials like solid limestone and an open cavity, the wave bends and echoes back to the surface at a different speed. The geophones pick up these returning echoes, and a computer translates the timing and intensity into a kind of sonic map. It is like a doctor tapping your chest and listening, but on a monumental scale. The initial seismic work in the 1990s, led by researchers from Florida State University, produced a startling map. The data suggested not just random gaps, but what appeared to be a large, rectangular chamber about 25 feet beneath the front paws of the Sphinx, and another possible cavity deeper beneath its rump, directly behind the area of the so-called door. This is where the second technology came in, ground-penetrating radar. If seismic listening gave a blurry picture, radar aimed to draw the outlines. Ground-penetrating radar works by sending high-frequency radio pulses into the ground. These pulses bounce off any interface they encounter, like the wall of a tunnel or the ceiling of a room, and return to a receiver. By measuring the time it takes for the signal to return, scientists can calculate the depth and, to some extent, the shape of the object. A Japanese team from Waseda University conducted a radar survey in the late 1980s, and their results were perhaps the most visually compelling. Their scans seemed to show a clear, man-made tunnel entrance on the north side of the Sphinx, and more importantly, they indicated a rectangular void about 9 feet deep and 12 feet wide located directly behind that sealed patch on the monument's back. The radar return signature was distinct, strongly suggesting an empty space rather than a natural fissure. For the first time, the ancient stories and the modern door had a potential chamber attached to them, a blank spot on the map waiting to be explored. Yet, in the world of archaeology, data is only the beginning of the debate. The Egyptian authorities, represented by the Supreme Council of Antiquities, have consistently treated these findings with deep skepticism. Official statements often attribute the anomalies to natural variations in the limestone bedrock, to pockets of softer stone or ancient cracks filled with sand. They point out rightly that geophysics is an interpretive science. The blips on a screen are open to multiple explanations until you physically dig and see. But their response went beyond academic caution. Following the flurry of surveys in the 1990s, the Egyptian government largely shut down further non-invasive scanning at the Sphinx. Permissions for new investigations became exceedingly rare. This official stance, intended to protect the monument from speculative damage, had an unintended consequence. It poured fuel on the mystery. To outside observers, the restriction felt less like preservation and more like a deliberate cover-up. Why not allow more advanced scans to definitively prove the voids are natural? The refusal to engage with the data only made the hidden chamber theory seem more plausible to its proponents. It created a modern standoff where technology hints at a secret and tradition stands guard, leaving everyone to wonder what truth, if any, lies in the silent space between the radar pulse and the official denial. Amidst this clash of data and legend, one man became the public face of official Egyptology and its guarded gates. For decades, the name Zahi Hawass was synonymous with Egyptian antiquities. As the long-serving head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities and later Minister of State for Antiquities, Hawass was not just an administrator, he was a global celebrity archaeologist, instantly recognizable with his signature Stetson hat. His relationship with the Sphinx secrets is a fascinating study in contradictions. In the 1990s, he personally led excavations around the monument, focusing intensely on an area near its rear. His team cleared what was described as a tunnel, a passageway that descended from behind the Sphinx's northern hind leg. Public anticipation soared, fueled by media reports suggesting this could be the entrance to the legendary chambers. Yet what Hawass presented to the world was deeply anticlimactic. He announced the tunnel was not ancient at all, but a pit dug by treasure hunters in the Roman era, perhaps 2,000 years ago, that went nowhere and contained nothing of significance. This was followed by other targeted digs, including one in front of the Sphinx that examined the area corresponding to the seismic anomalies beneath the paws. Again, Hawass declared the findings null, stating they revealed only the natural, undulating bedrock beneath the sand. His public pronouncements were consistently firm and often dismissive of alternative theories. He labeled the Hall of Records a fantasy and attributed all subsurface radar anomalies to natural geological features, like cracks filled with looser sediment that could mimic the signature of a room. For Hawass, the Sphinx was a solved puzzle, its mysteries confined to questions of its construction and restoration, not hidden treasure chambers. His charismatic, authoritative denials did more than just state a position, they actively shaped the entire public debate. To many in the mainstream press and academic circles, he was the definitive voice of reason debunking sensationalism. But to enthusiasts and independent researchers, he became a gatekeeper, a symbol of an establishment that seemed more interested in controlling the narrative than pursuing tantalizing evidence. This perception was amplified by his control over excavation permits and his forceful personality. The effect was to make the search itself feel forbidden, to transform a scientific inquiry into a rebellious act. When an official says there is nothing to find and then restricts the tools you could use to look, it does not quell curiosity, it intensifies it. The Hawass factor added a powerful human drama to the mystery, framing it as a battle between institutional authority and the relentless human desire to uncover what is hidden. It left the world wondering, was he protecting the monument from reckless speculation? Or was he protecting a secret that official Egyptology was not ready to confront? The ancient Egyptians were unparalleled architects of illusion. To understand the plausibility of a sealed chamber within the Sphinx, we need only look at their other monumental works, where hidden spaces were not the exception but a sophisticated rule. Their entire philosophy of building for eternity was intertwined with secrecy and protection. Consider the pyramids themselves, the very icons of Giza. For centuries, the Great Pyramid of Khufu was believed to be a simple, if massive, tomb with a few known chambers. That assumption was shattered in 2017 by an international team using a revolutionary technique called muon tomography. Muons are cosmic particles that rain down from the atmosphere, passing through solid matter much like X-rays. By placing sensitive detectors inside the pyramid, scientists could map where these particles passed through easily, indicating empty space. The scan revealed a stunning anomaly, a huge void, dubbed the Big Void, located directly above the Grand Gallery. This chamber is over 100 feet long, its purpose completely unknown. Its discovery proved that even the most studied monument on Earth still holds colossal secrets concealed by brilliant engineering. This was not a crack or a natural feature. It was a deliberate built space, hidden for 4.5 millennia until technology caught up with ancient cunning. This pattern of concealment repeats itself across Egypt. Beneath the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a sprawling labyrinth of crypts snakes through the foundation. These were not for burial, but for storing sacred statues and ritual objects, hidden away from all but the highest priests. The walls of these underground passages are carved with enigmatic scenes, including the famous Dendera light bulb relief, fueling speculation about lost knowledge. In the Valley of the Kings, the story is even more dramatic. The tomb of Tutankhamun was itself a hidden chamber, its entrance buried beneath the rubble of later tombs, which is why it escaped looters for over 3,000 years. More recently, radar scans around Tutankhamun's burial chamber have suggested the possible presence of hidden doorways leading to what might be the undisturbed tomb of Queen Nefertiti, a discovery that would rewrite history. Every few years, new technologies peer through stone and suggest that the maps we have are incomplete. The architectural principle at work here is profound. For the Egyptians, a monument's true power often lay in what was unseen. A pharaoh's spirit needed protection, sacred knowledge required safeguarding, and ritual objects demanded seclusion. They mastered the art of false walls, blind shafts, and chambers built within chambers. They understood that the best way to keep a secret was to make the very structure a puzzle. Given this established, proven cultural practice, the concept of a hidden space within the Sphinx shifts from fringe speculation to a logical possibility. The Sphinx was the ultimate guardian, a sentinel carved from the bedrock itself. If temples had crypts and pyramids had undiscovered voids, why would the greatest guardian of the necropolis be hollow? A sealed door on its back would not be an anomaly, it would be a signature. It would be entirely consistent with the mindset of builders who saw concealment as a sacred duty. The real question then becomes not if they could have built a chamber, but what they deemed worthy of placing behind that stone seal, under the watchful gaze of a lion with a pharaoh's face. Gold and jewels, while dazzling, are almost mundane in the context of this mystery. The true treasure within the Sphinx, if it exists, would likely be something that transcends material wealth, something the ancients considered worthy of their ultimate guardian. The most compelling possibility is a repository of knowledge, a literal hall of records. Imagine discovering a sealed, climate-controlled chamber containing pristine papyrus scrolls or inscribed stone tablets. These would not be simple king lists, but perhaps advanced astronomical charts, detailed histories of a pre-pharaonic civilization, or sophisticated treatises on mathematics and medicine that show a grasp of concepts we thought were discovered millennia later. The historical value would be incalculable, a direct line to the minds of the builders, answering questions we have been asking for centuries. What was the true purpose of the Giza complex? How did they achieve such staggering precision in their astronomy and construction? Such a find would not just add to history, it would force us to rewrite entire chapters. Another profound possibility is a cache of sacred ritual objects. The Sphinx was a temple to the sun god, a focal point of immense spiritual power. A hidden chamber could serve as its most sacred crypt, holding the original cult statues, ceremonial regalia, or ritual instruments used by the highest priests. Think of the antechamber to the tomb of Tutankhamun, but for a living, breathing monument. Objects like a ceremonial boat, a statue of Hamakhet made from a rare meteoritic iron, or ritual texts detailing the secret ceremonies performed at dawn could illuminate the spiritual world of ancient Egypt in a way no tomb ever could. This would be a treasure of cultural understanding, revealing the profound beliefs that motivated the creation of such a colossus. We must also entertain more speculative ideas. Could there be maps not of lands but of the stars as they appeared thousands of years earlier, recording a celestial event that defined their age, or perhaps artifacts that challenge our timeline entirely, objects from a lost culture that predates dynastic Egypt? While talk of advanced technology is often relegated to fantasy, the discovery of any sophisticated, non-metallic tool or instrument that we cannot immediately explain would send shockwaves through archaeology. The treasure, in the end, is not an object but a context. It is the potential to finally hear the Sphinx speak, not through prophecy or radar echo, but through the tangible, preserved legacy of the people who carved it. A single papyrus could be worth more than a room of gold, for it holds not wealth but truth. Yet the stone itself is not the only guardian of this secret. Modern archaeology operates within a web of real-world constraints far more complex than any ancient booby trap. The Giza-plateau is not just an archaeological site, it is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, a designation of immense prestige and equally immense responsibility. This status places the Sphinx and the pyramids under international scrutiny, with strict protocols governing any intervention. The primary and entirely legitimate concern is preservation. Any attempt to physically penetrate that sealed patch or drill into the bedrock risks causing irreversible damage. The limestone is ancient and fragile, weathered by millennia of wind and sand. An improperly executed excavation could lead to subsidence, cracking, or even a catastrophic collapse of the monument itself. The scientific community is rightly haunted by past mistakes, like the early 20th century restorations that used incompatible cement, which later caused more harm than good. The question every conservator must ask is stark. Is the potential reward of discovery worth the very real risk of destroying the very thing you are trying to understand? This caution is not bureaucratic red tape, it is a solemn duty to future generations. Beyond the physical risks lie profound cultural and religious sensitivities. For many Egyptians, the monuments of Giza are more than tourist attractions or historical artifacts. They are sacred national symbols, deeply entwined with modern identity and pride. The idea of foreign teams or even local authorities cutting into the back of the Sphinx can be seen as a violation, not an exploration. Furthermore, while ancient Egyptian religion is no longer practiced, the potential disturbance of a site believed to hold profound spiritual significance could draw objections from various communities, including those who view such sites as part of a shared human heritage that should remain inviolate. The political dimension amplifies these concerns exponentially. Egypt maintains absolute sovereignty over its antiquities. The Supreme Council of Antiquities controls all access, research permits, and most importantly, the narrative. A discovery that radically rewrites the established timeline of Egyptian history, such as evidence of a much older civilization at Giza, could be perceived as politically destabilizing. The current historical narrative is a cornerstone of national identity and cultural tourism. Upending it could be seen as undermining that foundation, challenging a story that has been taught for generations and is central to the country's soft power on the world stage. This creates a powerful, often unspoken, incentive to maintain the status quo. For officials, the known, controlled mystery of the Sphinx is far safer than the unpredictable consequences of a world-altering find. It is easier to manage tourists, scholars, and media around a stable, if incomplete, story than to navigate the seismic shift a major discovery would bring. The political and religious hurdles, therefore, form a barrier as formidable as the limestone itself. They represent a calculation where the value of a possible truth is weighed against the certainty of present-day stability, preservation, and control. The door in the Sphinx is guarded not by curses, but by the very real and complex priorities of the modern world, leaving us to wonder if the greatest obstacle to uncovering the past is our own hesitation to face what it might tell us. The very stone that conceals the secret may also be the key to revealing it. While the political and preservation concerns are real, a quiet revolution in archaeological science offers a potential path forward, one that requires no hammers, no drills, and no risk to the monument itself. This is the promise of non-invasive search technologies, methods that can peer through solid rock as if it were glass. Among the most powerful is muon tomography, the same technique that found the big void in the Great Pyramid. Muons are subatomic particles created when cosmic rays from deep space collide with Earth's atmosphere. They constantly rain down on us, passing through matter with ease. By placing ultra-sensitive muon detectors around or even inside a structure, scientists can create a detailed density map. Where muons pass through easily, it indicates empty space. Where they are absorbed, it signals solid rock. Applying this to the Sphinx would be a logistical challenge, but not an impossible one. A network of detectors placed in the surrounding desert and within known cavities could, over several months, produce a three-dimensional image of its internal structure, distinguishing conclusively between a natural fissure and a carved chamber. Another powerful tool is microgravimetry, which measures minute variations in the gravitational pull of the Earth. The principle is elegant. Every object exerts gravity, and the strength of that pull depends on its density. A solid block of limestone has a different gravitational signature than an empty room of the same size. By taking incredibly precise gravity measurements across the entire surface of the Sphinx and the ground around it, scientists can create a subsurface map of density differences. It is like giving the monument a gentle, planet-wide way in, where any hidden hollow would register as a slight, telltale lightness. This method has been used to locate buried tombs and tunnels at other ancient sites with remarkable accuracy. Finally, advanced three-dimensional laser scanning, or LiDAR, can be used not just to map the surface in exquisite detail, capturing every weathering pattern and tool mark, but also to model the structural integrity of the stone itself. When combined with ground-penetrating radar of the latest generation, which uses multiple frequencies to differentiate between types of voids and materials, these technologies could form a comprehensive diagnostic picture. We could have, in essence, a full body scan of the Sphinx, revealing its anatomy without a single scratch on its surface. The precedent for success is already established. Beyond the Great Pyramid's void, muon detectors have mapped the interior of volcanoes to predict eruptions and peered into the damaged reactors at Fukushima. In Italy, microgravimetry helped archaeologists locate an undiscovered chamber in the ancient city of Pompeii. The toolbox exists, and it grows more sophisticated every year. So this leads to an inevitable and pressing question. If the technology is available, proven, and completely non-destructive, why has there never been a comprehensive, transparent, and internationally reviewed survey of the Sphinx? Why not deploy an array of these sensors, collect the data openly, and let the scientific community worldwide analyze the results? The answer likely lies in that complex web of modern guardianship we just explored. Permission for such a high-profile project would still need to come from the Egyptian authorities, who may view even a non-invasive scan as an invitation to renewed public speculation and pressure. There is also the matter of cost, expertise, and the simple weight of tradition. The established narrative that the Sphinx holds no further secrets can be a powerful deterrent to new investigation. Yet the possibility remains. A definitive answer could be within our grasp, locked not behind stone but behind a decision. The tools are on the table, waiting for the moment when curiosity finally outweighs caution. High on the Sphinx's back, just behind the shoulders, the anomaly comes into sharp focus. In photographs, it is unmistakable, a near-perfect rectangle set against the weathered, undulating surface of the limestone. It measures roughly 3 feet by 4 feet, its edges appearing almost ruler straight. The patch itself is composed of a different type of stone, a darker, more granular limestone that contrasts with the surrounding bedrock. This is not a random crack or a place where the stone simply fell away. The corners are sharply defined, meeting at clean right angles that nature rarely produces without help. The most telling detail, however, lies in the border. Surrounding this darker rectangular insert is a narrow, lighter-colored band, a seam of mortar or a filler material that clearly separates the patch from the original Sphinx body. This seam is the fingerprint of human intervention, evidence that this block was cut, placed, and sealed into a pre-existing opening. When you trace its outline with your eye, the shape aligns perfectly with known Egyptian construction techniques for sealing sacred tunnels or storage niches, a practice seen in tombs and temple foundations across the Nile. It looks in every practical sense like a door, a hatch, or at the very least a deliberately closed portal. Yet to truly understand it, we must listen to the experts who read stone like a language. Geologists who support a natural origin point to the complex depositional history of the Giza limestone. They argue that what we see as a rectangular block could be a harder, more resistant layer of sedimentary rock that eroded at a different rate than the softer stone around it, creating the illusion of a cut shape. The straight lines, they suggest, could be the result of natural jointing in the bedrock, where stress fractures create geometric planes of weakness that weather into clean seams. The darker color might simply indicate a different mineral composition within that single layer, not a separate piece of stone inserted later. They see a geological coincidence, a trick of erosion and light that our pattern-seeking brains interpret as a human design. On the other side are archaeologists and stonemasons who have studied the site firsthand. They counter by pointing directly to the tool marks. Along the upper edge of the rectangle, faint but discernible, are a series of parallel striations. These are not the random scratches of wind-blown sand, which create chaotic, cross-hatched patterns. These marks run in a consistent direction, matching the known chisel techniques used by ancient Egyptian workers to dress and smooth limestone blocks. Furthermore, the filler material in the seam has been sampled by some researchers, though not in any official, published study, and described as a cement-like substance containing gypsum, a material the Egyptians commonly used as mortar. The overall impression for these observers is one of intentional craftsmanship. The rectangle is too perfectly proportioned, its placement too central on the monument's axis to be a random act of geology. It sits where a builder would logically place an access point to the interior, a service shaft for construction or a ritual passage for dedication, later sealed when its purpose was fulfilled. Standing before it, you are left weighing two compelling stories. One is written by time, wind, and water, a story of random natural beauty. The other is written by human hands, a story of purpose, secrecy, and a door closed for a reason. The silent stone refuses to declare which tale is true, holding its secret in the stark contrast between a straight line and the curve of a weathered dune. The rectangular patch on the Sphinx's back presents a physical puzzle, but the stone surrounding it tells a deeper, more controversial story. To understand why a hidden chamber would be so revolutionary, we must look at the very skin of the monument, at the weathering that scars its flanks. This brings us to one of the most heated debates in all of archaeology, the water erosion hypothesis. The sides of the Sphinx, particularly its enclosure walls, are marked by deep, undulating vertical channels. To a geologist, these are not the sharp, sand-blasted patterns of wind erosion. They are classic textbook examples of precipitation weathering, the kind caused by heavy, prolonged rainfall running down a surface over centuries. The problem is stark. According to mainstream Egyptology, the Sphinx was carved around 2500 BCE, in the middle of the Old Kingdom. The climate of Giza for the last 5,000 years has been predominantly hyper-arid, a desert with minimal rain. So where did this water come from? This question is at the heart of the work of Dr. Robert Skock, a geologist from Boston University. After extensive on-site study, Skock proposed a startling conclusion. The erosion patterns on the Sphinx enclosure, he argues, must have been caused by a much wetter climate, one that last existed in that region thousands of years before the pharaohs of the Fourth Dynasty. He points to a climatic period known as the Neolithic subpluvial, a time ending around 3000 BCE, when North Africa was a green savanna with regular monsoon rains. If his interpretation is correct, the core body of the Sphinx could be far older, perhaps dating back to 7,000 or even 9,000 years ago, a relic of a forgotten prehistoric civilization. Now consider what this does to our mystery. If Skock is right, then the Sphinx is not primarily a monument of King Khufu's era. It would be something he inherited, restored, and rebranded, much like the inventory stela suggested. This radically shifts the context for any hidden internal space. A chamber within a Sphinx that old would not be a new kingdom addition or an old kingdom storeroom. It would be a creation from a shadowy epoch lost to history, a time before written records in Egypt. The builders would be an entirely different culture with unknown gods, unknown technologies, and an unknown purpose for carving a lion guardian of such immense scale. What might a people from that lost age consider a treasure worth sealing away for eternity? It would not be the familiar gold and lapis lazuli of the pharaohs. It could be artifacts of a completely unfamiliar material culture, tools or symbols we would struggle to understand. Or it could lend terrifying credibility to the legends of a hall of records, preserving knowledge from a civilization that flourished and then vanished beneath the shifting sands and changing climate. The water erosion debate is not just about dating stone, it is about the very identity of the guardian. If the Sphinx is older, then the secret it keeps is not merely hidden, it is ancestral, a whisper from a world before our recorded history began, making the silence behind that rectangular door infinitely more profound. The history of searching for the Sphinx's secret is a chronicle of tantalizing near misses and abrupt dead ends. One of the earliest modern investigations was led by the French engineer Émile Barrès in the 1920s. Under the authority of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, Barrès undertook a massive project to excavate the Sphinx from the sand that had swallowed it up to its neck. His team worked for 11 years, and during this exhaustive clearing, they reportedly discovered several tunnels and shafts leading into the monument's body. According to later accounts from workers and researchers, Barrès did not explore these passages. Instead, in a move that has baffled treasure hunters ever since, he ordered them filled in with masonry and rubble before the restoration was complete. From a conservative archaeological perspective, this was a practical decision. He was there to stabilize and restore the visible monument, not to go chasing speculative holes that could weaken its structure. But to those convinced of a hidden chamber, Barrès' actions seem suspicious, as if he was following orders to permanently seal something the establishment did not want found. Decades later, in 1978, another official operation added fuel to this fire. The Egyptian Antiquities Organization, concerned about erosion and cracks in the limestone, launched a major restoration project. Part of this work involved injecting large quantities of cement into fissures in the bedrock around and beneath the Sphinx to stabilize it. Critics and alternative researchers, however, claim this cement was poured directly into what was an obvious, man-made entrance on the monument's northern side, a doorway mentioned in older travelers' accounts. They argue the restoration was a pretext, a way to permanently seal a known access point under the guise of preservation. Whether this was a deliberate act of concealment or a well-intentioned conservation mistake is impossible to prove, as the cement now forms a permanent, unyielding part of the structure. Each of these historical interventions, documented yet opaque, layers the mystery with bureaucratic ambiguity. They create a pattern where the authorities, charged with protecting the site, seem to also be actively preventing its exploration, not with guards but with concrete and silence. This tension between public curiosity and institutional control reached its peak in the 1990s. In 1996, a live television special was broadcast to an audience of millions, promising a major revelation at Giza. The program followed a team that had been granted permission to drill a small borehole into a limestone wall deep within a known, cramped tunnel behind the Sphinx. The world watched as the drill bit finally broke through, and a tiny fiber optic camera was snaked into the darkness. The footage that flickered onto screens was grainy and indistinct. It showed a small, empty cavity with what appeared to be another stone wall on the far side. There was no glittering gold, no hall of records, just a few feet of empty space and more stone. The television producers and many viewers were left deeply disappointed, declaring the effort a failure. But within the research community, that empty space was itself a revelation. It proved there was a hollow chamber behind that wall, a fact previously denied by officials. The far wall suggested it might be just the first room in a series. The anticlimactic broadcast, however, had a lasting effect. It cemented in the public mind the idea that nothing was there, while simultaneously proving to a smaller group that something definitely was. This cycle of raised hopes and muted results is the engine of the modern legend. Every sealed tunnel, every poured concrete slab, every televised letdown does not extinguish the mystery, it transforms it. The treasure is no longer just what might be inside the Sphinx, but the story of why we are not allowed to look, a narrative of suppression that, true or not, has become an inseparable part of the Guardian's long, silent watch. The precedent for hidden depths at Giza is not merely theoretical, it is carved in stone and filled with dark water. Just a short walk from the Sphinx, near the Great Pyramid's ancient causeway, lies a tangible clue to what might lie beneath the Guardian's paws. This is the Osiris Shaft, a stunning underground complex that proves the builders of Giza were masters of the subterranean world. Discovered in the 1930s but not fully explored until decades later, the shaft is a profound architectural statement. It begins as a vertical drop plunging nearly 100 feet straight down through solid bedrock. At the bottom, a narrow tunnel leads to a square chamber, empty and silent. But the true marvel lies deeper still. A second shaft descends from this chamber, leading to another room partially flooded with groundwater. Finally, a third shaft drops into the lowest, most secret level, a large rectangular hall supported by massive pillars, its floor a permanent, eerie pool of water. This tri-level design is not a natural cave, it is a deliberate, sophisticated construction, a symbolic tomb dedicated to the god Osiris, lord of the underworld and resurrection. The presence of water here is deeply intentional, representing the primordial waters of creation and the Nile's life-giving flood. This complex tells us something crucial about the mindset of the ancient engineers. They were not just building up toward the sky with pyramids, they were also digging down, creating elaborate, multi-stage hidden worlds within the very plateau itself. If they invested such tremendous effort to carve this symbolic underworld near the Great Pyramid, what might they have constructed beneath the Sphinx, the plateau's designated guardian? The Osiris Shaft acts as a powerful blueprint. It demonstrates a clear cultural and technical capacity for creating deep, chambered structures below the desert surface, structures designed for ritual purpose and sealed away from the common world. The architectural leap from a known, deep, water-filled tomb complex to a hypothesized chamber under the Sphinx suddenly feels very small. It moves the idea from the realm of fantasy into the realm of precedent. The builders clearly saw the underground as a sacred frontier, a place to connect with the gods of the deep earth and the afterlife. Given that the Sphinx itself is a creature of the earth carved from it, it would be a fitting guardian for a similar, perhaps even more significant, subterranean secret. The Osiris Shaft shows us the pattern, a deep, layered, hidden space. It makes the silence beneath the Sphinx feel not like an empty void, but like a question waiting for an echo. Perhaps the greatest treasure lies not in a chamber but in the sky above it. For some researchers, the Sphinx is not a guardian of gold, but a pointer, a colossal stone bookmark in a cosmic text written in stars. This theory shifts the search from the physical to the celestial, proposing that the Sphinx's true purpose was astronomical, its form and placement a permanent map of the heavens. The key to this idea rests on a powerful alignment. The Sphinx, with the body of a lion and the head of a human, gazes precisely due east toward the rising sun on the equinoxes. But what if it was also gazing at its own celestial counterpart? During the epoch of its traditional construction around 2500 BCE, the constellation we know as Leo would have risen in that exact eastern horizon just before the sun on the spring equinox, in what astronomers call a heliacal rising. In that moment, the lion in the sky would have appeared to be directly behind the lion on the earth, a perfect mirroring of form and direction that would have held profound religious significance. This was not a coincidence, proponents argue, but a deliberate act of sacred architecture, anchoring a moment of celestial rebirth to a monument of eternal stone. This cosmic connection deepens when we examine the structures built directly in front of it. Flanking the Sphinx are the ruins of two temples, one directly between its paws and a larger, more mysterious structure just to its east, known simply as the Sphinx Temple. This temple is an architectural puzzle. It has no roof, no inscriptions, and no obvious statues. Its core is a stark, open courtyard surrounded by massive pillars of red granite. The design seems deliberately oriented not for human congregation, but for a specific interaction with light and alignment. Some archaeologists propose it functioned as a solar observatory or a stage for rituals tied to the Sphinx itself. On certain key days, the rising sun would have flooded through the temple's eastern entrance, perhaps illuminating the Sphinx's face or creating a play of light and shadow within the courtyard that marked the seasons. The temple and the statue were not separate entities, but parts of a single, integrated machine for tracking time and worshipping the cycles of the cosmos. If this astronomical interpretation holds, then the sealed rectangle on its back takes on a radically different meaning. It may not be a door to a physical room, but a symbolic one. In ancient Egyptian spirituality, gates and doorways were potent metaphors for transition, for passing from one state of being to another, from ignorance to enlightenment, or from earthly life to the afterlife. The Sphinx, as a hybrid creature straddling the animal and human realms, already embodies such a threshold. A sealed door on such a monument could represent a spiritual gateway, a marker of initiation into the cosmic mysteries it was built to encode. The treasure, then, is not an object you can hold, but a realization you must reach, an understanding of humanity's place within a vast, ordered universe. The chamber we seek might be the chamber of the mind, opened not by drills, but by deciphering the alignments and intentions of the builders. This perspective does not dismiss the radar anomalies or the legends, but reframes them. Could a physical void still exist? Absolutely, perhaps as a ceremonial crypt for objects used in these sky-watching rites. But the driving force behind the Sphinx's construction was likely this grand celestial narrative. The true value of the site, the forgotten treasure, is the sophisticated knowledge system it represents, a system that used stone and sunlight to converse with the stars. It suggests the ancients were not just building tombs for their bodies, but monuments for their minds, designed to transmit a cosmic philosophy across millennia. The silence from the Sphinx is not an empty silence, but the quiet of a teacher waiting for the student to ask the right question. And the right question may not be what is behind the door, but what the door itself is pointing toward. Beyond the radar blips and geological debate, the human element of this mystery persists in whispered stories passed down through generations. These are the eyewitness accounts, the anecdotal tales from explorers, workers, and guides who have spent countless hours in the shadow of the great beast. While they hold no scientific weight, they form a compelling chorus of subjective experience that suggests something unusual lies within. Take, for instance, the persistent reports of air currents. Several local guides who have led tourists around the Sphinx for decades have mentioned feeling distinct cool drafts emanating from certain points at the base of the monument, particularly in the pre-dawn hours when the desert air is still. These are not the general breezes of an open plateau. They describe them as localized streams of air, as if issuing from a narrow crack or a vent connected to a larger space below. Similarly, there are stories from the restoration workers of the 1980s and 90s. Some claimed that during quiet moments when the crowds were gone, tapping on certain sections of the limestone around the rear flanks produced a hollow, echoing sound, distinctly different from the solid thud heard elsewhere. These sensations of moving air and resonant stone are exactly what you would expect to find if there were cavities beneath the surface, natural or otherwise. The stories reach back much further into the era of 19th century adventurers and early Egyptologists. In the 1800s, before the site was fully cleared, numerous European travelers wrote of being shown hidden entrances by their Bedouin guides. One particularly detailed account comes from a British engineer named Henry Salt, who served as consul general in Egypt in the early 1800s. In his private papers, he recorded a local story about a secret passage that began near the Sphinx's tail, descended deep underground, and was said to lead to a vast subterranean hall. Another traveler, the French diplomat and scholar Ferdinand de Lesseps, wrote of hearing tales from elderly locals about a forgotten tunnel network that connected the Sphinx to the Great Pyramid, a story that echoes the much later radar data. It is crucial to stress that these are anecdotes, not evidence. They are unverified, often embellished over time, and easily dismissed as folklore or the product of overactive imaginations in a place ripe for legend. Yet, when similar reports of drafts, echoes, and hidden doorways emerge independently from Victorian adventurers, 20th century laborers, and modern-day guides, it creates a pattern that is hard to ignore entirely. In the world of investigation, whether criminal or historical, persistent anecdotal reports from disparate, unrelated sources are often what lead authorities to take a closer look. They represent a kernel of perceived truth that demands an explanation. These human stories add a vital, tangible layer to the mystery. They remind us that the Sphinx is not just a subject for scanners and scholars, but a living presence in the landscape that interacts with those who live and work beside it. The cool draft on a guide's neck, the hollow knock heard by a worker, these small, personal experiences connect us directly to the enigma. They transform the abstract idea of a hidden chamber into a sensory possibility, something that can be felt and heard even if it cannot yet be seen. This collective human testimony, for all its lack of rigor, asks a simple, powerful question. If so many people across so many years have independently sensed something behind the stone, could they all be wrong? Money, it turns out, can be a powerful guardian all on its own. The Giza-plateau is not just an archaeological zone, it is a multi-billion-dollar economic engine. Millions of visitors from every corner of the globe make the pilgrimage each year. Their entry fees, hotel stays, guide services, and souvenir purchases forming a colossal river of revenue for Egypt. This entire industry is built upon a delicate balance, the allure of the unknown set against the comfort of the familiar. Tourists come to stand before mysteries, but they also come expecting to see the Sphinx and the pyramids exactly as they have always been pictured, eternal and enigmatic. Now conduct a simple thought experiment. What happens if that balance is shattered? Imagine a scenario where the sealed patch is opened and a chamber is found. If it is empty or contains only minor artifacts, the result could be a devastating anticlimax. The central mystery that fuels so much fascination evaporates overnight, potentially turning a sacred icon into a mere sculpture with a hole in its back. The romantic aura dissipates, and with it a portion of that magnetic pull for future visitors. the financial risk of this disappointment is immense. Conversely, what if the discovery is profound, a hall of records brimming with texts? The immediate global media frenzy would be unprecedented, a short-term tourism boom of staggering proportions. But then what? The long-term management of the site transforms entirely. The Sphinx is no longer just a monument to view, it becomes an active, fragile dig site. Access would need to be severely restricted for decades of careful excavation and study. The public plaza could become a secured research facility, visible only through barriers. The very act of revealing the treasure could make the experience of visiting it more distant, more clinical, and less magical for the average tourist. This creates a powerful, if unspoken, financial incentive for the status quo. The known, stable mystery is a reliable product. An open, uncertain excavation is a volatile gamble. Beyond tourism lies the currency of academic prestige and narrative control. A discovery that rewrites history would be the crowning achievement of any archaeologist's career, a guarantee of eternal fame within the field. Yet, it would also dismantle the life's work of countless other scholars whose careers are built upon the current historical model. Textbooks would become obsolete, doctoral theses would be invalidated, and entire museum exhibits would need redesigning. The gatekeepers of Egyptology, the professors, the curators, the heads of institutes, are the architects of our current understanding. A paradigm-shifting find does not just add a new chapter, it demands the revision of every chapter that came before. For some, the prospect of such glory is irresistible. For others, the threat of such upheaval is deeply unsettling. It creates a landscape where the most rational career choice for an established academic might be to gently steer research away from the Sphinx's back toward safer, more incremental questions. The stakeholders in the current story are numerous and influential. When you follow the logic, the financial and professional motives for leaving the door sealed are surprisingly coherent. It is not necessarily a conspiracy of silence, but a convergence of interests where curiosity, for once, is outweighed by the sheer weight of the known world. The treasure, therefore, is protected by a modern spell, one woven from economic stability, academic tradition, and the understandable human fear of rewriting everything we think we know. A definitive answer may lie not in breaking the stone, but in building its perfect reflection. Imagine a digital twin of the Sphinx, a virtual model so precise it exists as a one-to-one copy in the realm of ones and zeros. This is not science fiction, but the most logical and non-invasive next step in this centuries-long investigation. The process would begin by gathering every scrap of data ever collected. 19th century excavation notes from engineers like Barres, with their sketches of filled-in tunnels, would provide historical context. The raw numbers from the seismic refraction surveys of the 1990s, the radar amplitude maps from the Japanese team, and the gravity readings from any microgravimetry attempts would form the core geophysical dataset. These would be layered onto an exquisitely detailed three-dimensional surface scan of the monument, captured by modern LiDAR drones that can map every contour and crack down to the millimeter. Advanced software, the same kind used in oil exploration and medical imaging, would then fuse these disparate data streams. The algorithm's task would be to solve a puzzle, to find the single subsurface structure that best explains all the different signals, the sound wave echoes, the radar reflections, and the gravitational tugs. The output would be a three-dimensional model you could rotate, zoom into, and virtually slice through. On a screen, the familiar lion shape would become translucent, revealing its hypothesized internal anatomy. Areas of high interest, like the zone behind the rectangular patch or the space beneath the paws, would glow with a soft, pulsing highlight. Scientists could run simulations, testing if the anomalies behave like natural sinkholes filled with loose sand or like empty, carved chambers. They could virtually remove the sealed block on the back and see what the data suggests lies beyond it. This digital twin would be a tool for consensus. By making the model and the underlying data open source, researchers from every discipline and every country could examine the same evidence, run their own analyses, and contribute their interpretations. The goal is to move the debate from a war of words and conflicting claims to a shared examination of a unified dataset. It transforms the mystery from a physical object guarded by stone and bureaucracy into an intellectual challenge open to the global community. A clear, transparent model would not automatically reveal gold or papyrus, but it could definitively answer the first and most critical question: is there a man-made void there or not? It represents a path forward where technology serves not to speculate, but to see, offering a chance to replace legend with geometry and whispers with proof. The tragedy of the Library of Alexandria is a wound in the collective memory of civilization. Its destruction, a slow burn of accidents and conflicts over centuries, symbolizes an incalculable loss. Think of the scrolls that turned to ash, the plays of Sophocles that vanished forever, the astronomical charts and medical texts that dissolved into smoke. That loss created a permanent ache, a phantom limb of knowledge that tingles with what might have been. This profound sense of cultural amnesia is the very soil from which legends like the Hall of Records grow. The idea of a sealed chamber beneath the Sphinx resonates so powerfully because it promises a salve for that ancient wound. It is not merely a story about finding treasure. It is a story about finding ourselves, about recovering a chapter of the human story we fear is gone forever. The legend taps into a universal longing for a golden age, a time before the great forgetting, when wisdom was whole and the world was understood in its entirety. In this light, the Sphinx transforms. It is no longer just an Egyptian monument guarding a pharaoh's secret. It becomes a potential vault for prehistorical human achievement, a time capsule from an epoch that predates our written histories. Could it hold the answers Alexandria burned? The alignment is poetic. One library was lost to fire and war above the ground, while another, perhaps, was deliberately sealed beneath the stone, waiting for a more enlightened age to reclaim it. This framing elevates the mystery from an archaeological puzzle to a mythic quest. We are not just looking for a room, we are searching for a mirror, hoping to catch a glimpse of who we were before the dust of millennia settled over our accomplishments. The guardian on the Giza-plateau, therefore, stands watch over more than sand. It guards the very possibility of a recovered past, a silent sentinel at the border between our history and our deepest hopes. So let us play out the day the seal is finally broken. The world holds its breath as a team, under the glare of global media, carefully removes that rectangular block. The first scenario is the quietest and for many the most disappointing. The cavity behind the stone is exactly that, just a cavity. It is a natural pocket in the limestone, perhaps enlarged slightly by ancient hands, but containing only dust, a few pottery shards, and the bones of a long-dead rodent. The radar blip was just geology, the legends merely stories. The mystery evaporates in an instant, and the Sphinx returns to being a magnificent, but ultimately straightforward statue. The romance is gone, but the monument is safe, its integrity confirmed. The second scenario offers a gentler revelation. The chamber is man-made, and it holds artifacts, but they tell a familiar story. Perhaps it is a builder's cache containing copper chisels, stone hammers, and pottery jars that once held water or food for the workers who carved the guardian. Or maybe it is a dedicatory deposit from the time of Pharaoh Khafre, with a small statue of the king, some ceremonial offerings, and inscriptions that name him as the monument's restorer. This find would be a fantastic archaeological prize, filling in details of daily life and ritual, but it would not rewrite any textbooks. It would confirm the mainstream timeline, a satisfying, if not earth-shattering, conclusion to the quest. The third scenario is the one that changes everything. The light from the endoscope reveals not tools but technology, strange crystalline objects, metallic alloys unknown to ancient Egypt, or stacks of an unknown writing material. Perhaps there are star charts showing constellations as they appeared not 4,500 but 12,000 years ago. This chamber does not belong to the age of the pyramids but to a forgotten epoch. The artifacts are utterly alien to our understanding of the timeline, forcing an immediate and painful reassessment of human history. The Hall of Records is real, and its contents are so disruptive that the very foundations of archaeology would tremble. The Guardian was not keeping a secret, it was keeping a truth we were not ready to face. A fourth, more architectural possibility exists. The space is man-made, but it is not a treasure room. It is a structural feature, an access shaft or a relieving chamber built by the original engineers to stabilize the massive weight of the stone or to allow for drainage. Its purpose was purely functional, sealed once the construction was complete. This outcome is a different kind of truth, revealing the Sphinx as a feat of sophisticated engineering rather than a mystical vault. The treasure is the insight into the brilliant, practical minds that conceived it. But any discovery, especially a major one, would trigger a logistical storm. The moment a significant artifact is glimpsed, the site would be locked down under military guard. The global media circus would descend, a chaotic swarm of satellite trucks and reporters camping for months. Every move by the archaeological team would be scrutinized and second-guessed in real time. The pressure to extract objects quickly for public display would clash violently with the painstaking, decade-long process of proper conservation and study. Security would be an immense, costly challenge with a genuine threat of theft or sabotage. The quiet dignity of the Giza-plateau would vanish, replaced by a high-stakes, high-pressure compound where science, politics, and spectacle collide. This speculative exercise reveals the true stakes. The mystery is not just about what is behind the stone, but about what happens to our world when, and if, that stone is ever moved. The rectangle on the Sphinx's back presents us with a profound choice, a modern ethical dilemma carved in ancient stone. On one hand, the human drive to explore is in our very DNA. From the deepest oceans to the distant stars, our history is written by those who dared to look beyond the known horizon. The pursuit of knowledge is not a frivolous hobby, it is a core human imperative, the engine of progress and understanding. With today's non-invasive technologies, from muon tomography to advanced ground-penetrating radar, we possess the tools to investigate without causing harm. We could deploy a suite of sensors, gather definitive data, and finally answer a question that has haunted us for centuries. To turn away from that opportunity, to willfully ignore a potential discovery because it is difficult or controversial, feels like a betrayal of the very spirit of inquiry that built our civilizations. The Sphinx may hold a key to our past, a lost chapter of human history. Can we, in good conscience, choose to remain ignorant when the means for revelation are at our fingertips? The case for exploration is clear, the treasure is truth, and the tools are ready. Yet the opposing argument carries a weight born of reverence and caution. The Great Sphinx is not a laboratory specimen. It is a fragile, irreplaceable monument that has survived for millennia. Any physical intervention, no matter how carefully planned, carries inherent risk. Drilling, cutting, or even the vibrations from equipment could trigger unforeseen weaknesses in the weathered limestone. We have seen throughout history how well-intentioned restorations have caused catastrophic damage to ancient sites. The potential reward, a slim chance of treasure, must be measured against the very real possibility of permanent, tragic loss. Some mysteries, argue the preservationists, are meant to remain mysteries. The aura of the Sphinx, its power to inspire awe and wonder, is inextricably linked to the questions it refuses to answer. To solve the puzzle might be to break the spell, reducing a cosmic guardian to a solved problem. Perhaps the greatest respect we can show this ancient sentinel is to let it keep its secret, to acknowledge that some doors are closed for a reason, and that our role is not always to pry them open, but to stand in respectful silence before them. So we arrive at the heart of the matter, a balance between two noble impulses. Do we prioritize our burning curiosity, our right to know, or do we prioritize our duty as stewards, protecting a legacy for future generations? This is not just an academic debate for archaeologists, it is a question for all of us. Where do you stand? If you had the authority to make the final decision, would you give the order to investigate with every safe tool available, driven by the belief that knowledge is the ultimate treasure? Or would you decree that the Sphinx has guarded its secret long enough, that its silent, weathered presence is more valuable than any artifact it might contain? The rectangle on its back is more than a geological feature. It is a mirror reflecting our own values back at us. What we choose to do or not do says as much about our modern world as it ever could about the ancient one. The shadow of official secrecy inevitably breeds whispers in the dark. When a government restricts research and a celebrated archaeologist dismisses compelling anomalies, the vacuum of explanation does not stay empty for long. It fills with stories, some intriguing, others outlandish, all attempting to connect the dots that mainstream science leaves scattered. The Sphinx, cloaked in both ancient mystery and modern restriction, has become a magnet for conspiracy theories of every stripe. There are those who believe the monument is a beacon or landing site for ancient astronauts, its true builders visiting from the stars. Others weave intricate tales of secret societies, from the Knights Templar to modern cabals, who allegedly discovered the Hall of Records long ago and now guard its transformative knowledge to maintain their power. And of course, there is the persistent narrative of a deliberate government cover-up, that Zahi Hawass and others are not protectors but gatekeepers, hiding a truth that would destabilize religions, economies, and history itself. The sheer volume and creativity of these theories can be overwhelming, but their persistence is a symptom, not the disease. They flourish in the fertile ground between tantalizing clues and official silence. The Sphinx provides the perfect ingredients. It is globally iconic, physically imposing, and surrounded by legitimate, unanswered questions. When seismic data suggests a void and the response is to pour concrete into tunnels rather than fund new scans, the leap to cover up feels, to many, like a short step, not a wild jump. This dynamic reveals a deep and growing distrust between the public and the institutions of archaeology. For every expert who cites preservation, a skeptic sees suppression. For every citation of natural geology, a believer sees a patronizing dismissal. The real conspiracy, however, might be far more mundane yet equally effective. It may not involve men in black suits guarding a crystal library, but rather the slow, grinding weight of academic inertia, bureaucratic caution, and professional risk aversion. Think of it as a conspiracy of the conventional. Challenging the established timeline is a career risk for a young Egyptologist. Approving a high-profile dig on the world's most famous monument is a massive liability for a government minister. The path of least resistance is to manage the mystery, not to solve it. This creates a system where the safest answer is always no, and the most rewarded research often reinforces what we already know rather than daring to ask what we do not. In this light, the wild theories serve a paradoxical purpose. They keep the pressure on. They remind the establishment that public curiosity is a force to be reckoned with, that the Sphinx belongs to human wonder as much as to academic jurisdiction. While ancient astronauts might stretch credulity, they underscore a fundamental and valid point. The standard explanations feel incomplete. The true secret society might not be a shadowy cabal, but the old guard of academia itself, not out of malice, but out of an ingrained culture that prizes incremental certainty over disruptive possibility. The rectangle on the Sphinx's back, therefore, is more than a physical feature. It is a Rorschach test. What you believe lies behind it reveals less about the monument and more about your faith in the storytellers. Do you trust the official guardians of history, or do you suspect they are guarding something else entirely? the future of this search is no longer confined to the halls of academia or the guarded gates of the plateau. It is being written in code, in online forums, and in the minds of a new generation of independent researchers armed with open data and global collaboration. The next breakthrough may not come from a government-sponsored dig, but from a collective analysis of every existing scan, photograph, and historical note shared freely across the internet. Imagine a worldwide team of engineers, geologists, and enthusiasts, all examining the same muon tomography data or refining three-dimensional models of the Sphinx subsurface, their work transparent and peer-reviewed by the public itself. This open-source approach bypasses traditional gatekeepers, turning the mystery into a global puzzle that anyone can help solve. The pressure for answers is building not through protest but through persistent, informed curiosity. Every documentary that reaches millions, every detailed blog post dissecting the seismic data, every social media discussion keeps the question alive in the public consciousness. This sustained interest creates its own kind of force, one that funding bodies and even governments eventually find difficult to ignore. Within the next decade, this convergence of civic interest and technological capability will likely become irresistible. A new international consortium, perhaps backed by a major university or a scientific institution with no political stake, will propose a definitive, non-invasive survey. They will promise full transparency, live streaming the data collection, and publishing every finding in real time for the world to scrutinize. The tools for this final scan already exist or are rapidly evolving. Next-generation muon detectors, smaller and more sensitive, could be deployed for a full year, painting an unambiguous picture. Quantum gravity sensors, now in development, promise to map subsurface density with a precision that makes today's instruments seem crude. Artificial intelligence will be set to work not to speculate but to correlate, finding patterns in the chaotic data from decades of surveys that human analysts have missed. The prediction, then, is not of a sudden treasure hunt but of a quiet scientific revolution. The Sphinx will undergo a comprehensive, peaceful examination it has never before allowed. We will not see drills and dust, but the silent hum of servers processing petabytes of information. And from that digital torrent, a shape will emerge, a three-dimensional truth rendered in stark clarity on a screen. It will either be the outline of a chamber, a corridor, a staircase leading down, or it will be the comforting, solid geometry of unbroken stone. One way or another, the Guardian will finally have its say, not in a whisper of legend, but in the clear, binary language of fact. This is the hope that makes the waiting worthwhile, the anticipation that the longest watch may finally be nearing its end. The Sphinx's secret is a journey measured in millennia, not meters. We began with the monument's sheer, imposing presence, a lion of stone gazing toward a horizon it has watched for thousands of years. We focused on that small, rectangular patch on its back, a tiny door that seems insignificant against the colossal scale, yet holds the weight of countless questions. Our path wound through ancient texts like the Dream-stela and the prophecies of Edgar Cayce, then turned to the cold, hard data of modern seismic surveys and radar scans that revealed tantalizing voids. We navigated the human drama of official skepticism and the compelling precedent of structures like the Osiris shaft, proving the ancients were masters of hidden depths. We weighed the profound ethical choice between our thirst for knowledge and our duty to preserve, and we saw how this single mystery reflects our deepest cultural longings, our distrust of gatekeepers, and our hope for recovered wisdom. Through it all, one truth emerges with crystalline clarity. The greatest treasure the Sphinx guards may not be gold, papyrus, or alien artifacts. The true treasure is the enduring mystery itself. It is the unyielding human drive to look at a weathered stone face and ask why, to hear a whisper from the past and strain to understand its meaning. This relentless curiosity is our species' finest heirloom, the engine that has propelled us from caves to cosmos. It is the same impulse that now brings you here, pondering a sealed block on a screen. So we turn the final question over to you. After this journey through legend and science, where does your conviction lie? Do you believe that rectangular patch is merely a geological quirk, a trick of the light and stone? Or do you think it is a sealed door behind which forgotten treasures, be they historical, spiritual, or utterly unimaginable, wait patiently in the dark? Share your theory in the comments below. Let the conversation continue, because the search belongs to all of us. And as the desert sun sets once more over the Giza Plateau, casting long shadows from the pyramids, the Great Sphinx endures. It keeps its watch, silent and patient in the sand, a reminder that history's greatest secrets are not always lost. Some are simply waiting, daring us to be brave enough or wise enough to finally ask the right question.